What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Matty P here with another episode of Steelers Touchdown Under. We're talking my top Steeler fits on day one. That is the first round, or it's really night one of the NFL draft. But these picks are the guys that I'm talking about who I think are the top 10 fits for the Steelers pre-combine. So this might shake out as we go through. We'll then in the next couple of days do probably the next 24 hours, get out the day two picks. Then we'll get out day three. So you've got my full top 75 players pre-combine that you can look out for at the combine that I think fit what the Steelers are looking for in the draft, both in terms of best player available, positions they need to fill, and the talent, the fit, the culture, all those good things. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to put all the names up on the screen, and then I'm going to justify each one of them or tell you why I think they are. I've actually ordered them too in terms of the order that I think I'd pick them if they became available as well. So that's kind of an interesting one that I think we'll sort of different feedback on. Now, we'll also get into some players that are less realistic versus realistic. I did have to make a hard cut, and I'll explain that as we go into it. But here, I'm going to bring up on screen right now for you without any further ado. All right, so we've got the draft order up there. Obviously, we know Chicago right now is picking first. That could change between now and their draft. The Steelers are picking 20 right now. Everyone knows I'm for always trading back, so we'll see if that happens. But right now, as we see it, as it's standing today, or as I record this tonight, pre-combine, the Steelers are picking at number 20. All right, so the names in front of you that I've got right now, Joe Alt, Talisi Fuaga, Fashanu, Quinion Mitchell, Jackson Powers-Johnson, Tyler Guyton, Amaris Mims, Eric Rakestraw Jr., and Zach Frazier. Now, very hard to not put Morgan in here, the tackle out of Arizona. That was very hard not to include him, but he is in there in my day two. I will foreshadow that he's in my day two. You've also kind of probably look at this list and you go, all right, the guy that's top on this list right now is probably Joe Alt, followed by Fashanu or Quinion Mitchell in terms of where these guys will probably be ranked in the first round. So why have I got Fuaga there before Fashanu? The reason why I've got Fuaga there is because he can be placed at literally 5 different positions, or probably 4 different positions. You probably wouldn't play him at center, but he can play pretty much all 4 positions, either at guard or at tackle. But he's a slot play right tackle. He's probably the truest right tackle, the best rated true right tackle in the draft. Latham, you'll see go anywhere. You might even see Latham move inside, depending on which team drafts him as well. A bit like Skronowski last year, who went to the Titans off the top of my head. Amaris Mims is probably the second best right tackle, and that's why he sits there. So ahead of Fashanu, who I think exclusively will play pretty much on the left. I think you could possibly kick him in at guard too, but he's a left side player. And the Steelers have got Broderick Jones. So that's why I've got Fuaga there, because I think he's arguably the top tackle out there with Joe Alt. I think Joe Alt there's less of a gamble on making that decision. But certainly when you think about Fuaga, as I say, if it's his right tackle spot, that's what the Steelers are looking for to shore up this O-line. Quinion Mitchell, it might seem odd that I've not picked quarterbacks. A lot of Steelers fans will be out on quarterbacks. I've not put a wide receiver on this list. I've not put other cornerbacks. I've done realistic guys that could be there at 20. Now, it might seem really odd for me to put Alt there, but if the Steelers were to trade up into the early teens, and if there is a run depending on trades that happen in the draft on quarterback and wide receiver, you could pretty much see that dominate the top 10. Right? And if someone decides Fuaga shows out in a combine or Fashanu is better than Alt, if that fits the style of the O-line of a team drafting, you could see one of these guys fall. The other thing is you've got Brock Bowers there, rumored to be a top 10 pick. Whether that's the case in terms of the money that he'll be paid, he'll pretty much be paid like one of the top tight ends in the league as soon as you draft him in that regard. So whether that actually remains true will be interesting to see for sure through the draft and on process and on draft day. But as I say, we're talking about the guys that Steelers are picking at 20 here. So I've got Jackson Powers-Johnson in there. I think some people will say drafting a center at 20 is way too early. Well, I don't think it is, because quite honestly, you get him on a 5-year deal. We've seen where Tyler Linderbaum went. You see where Creed Humphrey went in at 55 or after 55 in that draft. He went 57, 58 when the Steelers picked Pat Freeman. So quite honestly, I think when you look at Jackson Powers-Johnson, always going to be Zach Frazier. I've got to stop doing that. But when you look at that, I think from that perspective, the Steelers it's not the worst move the Steelers could make. It's certainly not an Artie Burns move or any of that sort of stuff. But Jackson Powers-Johnson, a lot of people are enamored by him. He hasn't had the cleanest snapping in college. I will just say that. That's one thing we've got to remember with him. I then have got Guyton over Mims. purely because I think you can play Guyton on the left and the right, whereas Mims you pretty much got to play exclusively on the right. But we're talking here, guys. We're talking about guys and gals. We're talking about the top 5 pretty much tackle prospects at this stage. Now, NFL Draft Pass actually have Tyler Guyton ranked a little bit below that, which I kind of found interesting. But when you look at, and JC Latham is there in Daniel Jeremiah's drafts, I just think that because of Latham being kicking into guard in some offensive schemes, I didn't put him here because I don't see the Steelers needing a guard this year. Guyton is ahead of Mims in Daniel Jeremiah's top 50 players in the draft, so that's an interesting thing. Quinton Mitchell is number 19 outside of those guys. And Eric Rakestraw there is number 24. This is a guy out of Missouri. A lot of people are going to talk about, guys like Cooper DeJean. You're going to talk about all these different guys from necessarily not the leading schools in terms of schools that made the college playoffs, the leading colleges. But Ernest Rakestraw Jr. will probably test off the board when you see in terms of what he will bring in sort of size, speed, agility. Now, size, he's not going to be the tallest guy on the list. By no stretch of the imagination, he's not necessarily going to even be the most physical guy on the list. But he should measure in about 6 foot, somewhere about that 185-pound mark is what you'll see. NFL Draft Bars have a grading on him of about 86.7. And say he's number 24 on Daniel Jeremiah's top 50, so right in that. But he's a rangy, he's a fluid cornerback, according to Daniel Jeremiah. He's a loose athlete. You see that when you watch any of the tape. He's sort of he almost floats in the way he does it. The one knock that Daniel Jeremiah has on Ennis Rakestraw is in terms of finishing with the ball instead of just tapping it away. But we saw the effectiveness of Joey Porter this year for the Steelers. With people, even myself, criticized his production in college, and you saw in the NFL he made pretty quick work of it. Got some key interceptions. Ennis Rakestraw had really strong tape against Georgia as well. He's got really big energy. This is the sort of guy I think you can pair with Joey Porter Jr. and you'd be locked in. And as I say, I think he's going to massively rise up the boards. He's going to challenge guys like Quinton Mitchell through the combine process and his pro day. So that's why I've got him here, because the other thing about it too is pretty much 6, 7, 8, 9. And I'll explain why I put Zach Frazier on this list as a day 1 pick. These are guys that I think you can get pretty much between 23 and 32, right? I do think you can do that. Now, you might say, why didn't you put Cooper DeJean on that? Because Cooper DeJean, for me, is a back-end 28th or probably 27th to 32nd pick in this draft player. I think the Steelers can go after. I think the Steelers can get one of these 9 guys at 20, right? It's almost a 50% chance, right? Because only, they're picking 20. If they stay there, there's only 10 guys or 11 guys that can come before all of these guys if it was to occur perfectly in that regard against the model that I'm offering. But I think if the Steelers trade back, you can get 6, 7, 8, 9 on my list. But that's why I've got Zach Frazier there, because the Steelers could trade back to 29. I mean, that's a drop. That's a mock in a lot of mocks, different platforms. Lions always come with the 61st pick and the 29th pick for pick number 20. And it's hard not to take that deal every time because you get 2 second-rounders. Really cool stuff. But Zach Frazier, I think the idea of getting a center on a 5th-year deal, particularly I've seen Jackson Powers-Johnson mocked to as low as the Colts, but someone trading into the Colts spot, but definitely Seattle and Jacksonville, and to a lesser degree, even the Bengals. I've even seen LA in some mocks get him, but particularly Seattle and Jacksonville do need a center. Miami would need a center after the Steelers, so if the Steelers passed on him, the Miami might trade up because they're probably going to lose Connor Williams in free agency. So if you look at center in that respect, then you want to go get Zach Frazier. He's not going to be there when you pick in the 2nd round at sort of 51, right? So that's the thing the Steelers need to consider. That's why I've got him in those 9 players. But hey, this is my pre-combine top. It's going to be 9 guys for you. I didn't do top 10 because my grade on Morgan has slipped him into the top of the 2nd round. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you like these guys? Is there a name on this list that you'd prefer than the others? Is there a ranking of this list? Do you agree with my order in terms of if this was available? Would you be okay with this? Do you have questions on any of the cornerbacks? Are you more keen on us, the Steelers, drafting a quarterback or a wide receiver? You tell me in the comments. As I said, in the next 24 to 36 hours, depending on when you listen to this, we will get out the day 2 picks of my top 75 pre-combine guys, and then we'll refine that after combine. I like to do, for the background for everyone, I like to do a top 75 that gets bigger as the days go on, or the Steelers have more draft picks depending on which day. And so we all never try and keep it more than 15 guys in the first round, and then we keep it sort of 30-ish spread across the next 2. But these are, I'm really kind of honing in on 9 guys at the moment pre-combine. So you'll have to wait and see who I pick on day 2 and day 3. I'm locked in on probably about 55 of the names, pretty much locked in my day 2 guys. But I will have locked it in by the time you get the day 2 picks. Anyway, as I said, let me know in the comments, what do you think of these guys? Is there a guy here that you like more than the other? As always, go Steelers.